Hello friends, welcome to another episode of Soviet SimCity. Sorry it's been a while, but this is going to be an exciting one. I think we're finally going to finish building our steel mill, which is under construction, and maybe organize some agriculture better, get a shop or two built. We'll see how it goes here. Okay, as you must know by now, I really enjoy obsessing over the population statistics, and we can see productive age workers kind of leveling off over the short term. But if we look at a longer term view, what we're really seeing is peaks and troughs, it going up and down. And many of those peaks coincide with winters. I think we're still getting some health problems, specifically in the winters, and I'm really wondering if what's causing it. Power generation might be causing it, our heating plants might be causing it. We'll see. Alright, I haven't spent very much time so far looking at the building overlays, and I'm wondering why I'm not seeing anything there. Okay, that's a good one. Wear and tear. So this is sort of showing where the wear and tear is high. There are quite a few. So I guess, waste. And for the most part, we're in the green there. There's a couple spots where waste accumulates fast. That might just be unlucky of who's waiting right now for pickup. And free flats, almost none. Almost zeros across the board. I guess in a couple there I've got 90 some and 22 in some of those bigger old-fashioned residential buildings we built, but really I think the story here is we need to get some more housing built. Oh, and we've got an iron mine online. We're 57% done our steel plant. So yeah, gonna have to reduce the workers here so it doesn't steal all the workers. And actually, yeah, 50 might be a lot for this. Even 40 might be a lot, but we'll start with that. We'll see what we get. I do want to build up some stock, some inventory at the beginning. But there we go. Let's keep going. Okay, huzzah! Not sure why we didn't get the notification, but it appears that our steel plant is complete there. So I'm wondering if we have the capacity of our construction offices to start building other stuff. And there we go. We got the iron. I don't know why it's not bringing in the coal, but operating without issues. We got steel. Woohoo! This opens a lot of doors for us. Not only does this mean that we don't need to rely on imported steel for our constructions, which is a huge expense, but eventually, if we have enough, we will export this steel, and it is a great quality export. At least considering the amount of work hours that go into it, it's really quite efficient on producing money. At least compared to agricultural-based industries. So we'll take a quick look at the construction offices here, and maybe we will, get our steel from our steel plant and start construction on a cement plant or something like that. We'll see. Okay, it looks like this diner we had built is finished as well, and my goodness, it is hugely popular. Just look at the flow and look at the people waiting out. I think this is a mod building. Fewer chefs than required. Of course, it's way too popular. So, two things might be happening. Don't have quite enough employees. Oh, now it's empty. Interesting. Okay. Well, this seems popular anyway. I may need to consider building more restaurants of this type. Restaurants also probably have better service quality and take some pressure off stores, right? Because I'm assuming people will get food and drink satisfaction from them without the need of going to a shop. So especially as the population increases and as the density increases, my shops might be overwhelmed. Oh, there's the Miami bar too. So I think I need more restaurants. I think that's something my Soviet government's not good enough at providing a lot of that could really help with food distribution. Okay, we're looking at productive age workers. As usual, there's ups and downs, but the downs don't seem as bad as previous levels. Let's take a look at happiness. It's a good trajectory. Food satisfaction. Yeah, it's really healthcare that suffers. And government loyalty. Suffering for some reason. Not a huge change over the last 3 years. Only, 0.4%. But still, not a good direction. Alcohol addiction being down is a good thing. It means other needs are being met. Sports and culture up, religion down, food is up. I think most of our trajectories are good. Needs seem to be being met consistently. I don't know why the impact to government loyalty is negative, but everything else seems to be okay except the health. And the health, man, I'm just really suspecting that it's related to all the coal that we're burning. Let's take a look at the economic health. So what are we consuming? Coal and coal ore. Let's go back and take a look over time at our consumption. In terms of dollars, it's coal ore and water and coal and crops. But these are all things we're producing. So this is a good sign. The most expensive imports over the last 12 months, it's chemicals and it's power. Right? And I think most of the power we are... Oh, am I locked in on coal? I'm looking at the coal there. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So... clearly in the wintertime, in the coldest month, January, February, we burn the most coal for electricity and for heating. That's no surprise. So we were just adding a second pump because it looks like my water source and my water treatment plant are both only at half capacity, so probably we've reached the max of what the pipe can do. And at the same time here, our big cement plant is finally open. This won't need very many workers, just because it depends on the rate at which the concrete, the cement, is consumed, and at first that's going to be pretty small. But this is something that will save us money. We already produce the gravel, and we use a lot of cement and concrete in a lot of things in this game, and while that's not super expensive to import, it's a bit of a hassle. It's heavy, it's a lot of trips by truck to the border, it's a lot of gasoline. So it is definitely long-term a savings to have this, particularly since we do have a coal economy. That's the barrier to entry. That's what we're still going to be using coal for after we're no longer burning it. We're still going to need it for steel, and we're still going to need it for cement and concrete. So we're putting a couple free construction offices here. If you haven't been following, basically what's going on is we don't quite have enough water supply. And meanwhile, our treatment plant is only at about half of capacity. So I'm trying to double the inputs and outputs. In particular, I picked a bad water tower. I loved the cute little steel American-style water tower I had, but it only had one output and one input, whereas this nice tall vanilla one has more storage and it has two of each. So even this fix won't last forever. Eventually we're going to need another water source, but right now we only have one water source, and I'm trying to upgrade it, and this means we are going to be without water for some short period of time. So I am obviously trying to keep that disruption to the minimum possible and get this particular construction job done as quick as possible, and so that's why I need the vehicles close by here as much as possible, and to make sure we've got the resources available and all of that. But these will not stay here, and eventually all the vehicles will go back to wherever they came from. So it's January of 1978. Time to look at some more economic statistics here. And in particular, I want to see how our crop production is going. Our oil production is at its maximum, so we had set up some oil wells that just have trucks that automatically export everything to the border. And you can see we're producing right around 10,000 units per year. There we go. Looking at crops, we do still have an increase in crops. Looking at food, a little bit less last year, but in general holding steady. Same thing for alcohol. Remember, I had disabled the food and alcohol factories temporarily to ensure that there would be workers to get the water infrastructure built as fast as possible. So that might explain why there was a little bit less of food and alcohol produced this past year, even though crop production was at an all-time high. And there we go, our crop silo's pretty full. Okay, folks, we're going to leave it there for today. As you can see, I'm trying to redevelop this part of town here to put in some higher density and better quality housing. And it's only taking me, forever to go through all the mods and pick what I like the most. I'm trying to preserve a balance. I'm only getting rid of the smallest houses because they have low housing quality, not because they're not dense enough, not because I don't like the look of them. But I do want to keep a balance, keep a variety of different housing options available. But we are probably going to straighten that road to make a bit more space and put something big like that in the middle. We do have our own steel and concrete being produced right now, so I'm less afraid to make a big investment in a big building that needs a lot of those. So thanks for watching. I'm Mr. Squiggs, and we'll redevelop this part of town next time.